Hey guys, it's Melanie. Welcome to my channel. Today we have part 3 of the Once Upon a Book Club Advent Calendar. So stay tuned. So if you're just joining us, welcome. But I would recommend you go back and watch day 1 and day 2 because we're going through a story here and it's one continuous story. And day 1 I opened gifts for days 1 through 4. Part 2 I opened gifts for days 5 through 8. And today's video I'll be opening gifts for days 9 through 12. And well, if you want the whole story you have to start at the beginning. But also I can give you a quick recap on the gifts that we've gotten so far. So we've got Secret Sisters by Joy Calloway. We got Love and Other Constellation Prizes by Jamie Ford. We have A Piece of the World by Christina Baker Klein. We have this super cute little book light that can sit on your desk or clip on your book. It's adorable. I love it. We got this cute little bookworm keychain here. We got a really cute little locket necklace that's actually the Once Upon a Book Club book box. And then you open it up and inside it says, they all read happily ever after, or they all read happily ever after. Super cute. We got these super cozy bookish mittens. Love them. And this spoon rest with the first page of Wuthering Heights on it. Okay, so I think those are all of the gifts that we're at this point. So let's continue on with our story. Day 9. As she sat at her desk that evening, she carefully lined the top of her eyes with a little bit of eyeliner and patted some blush and highlight onto her cheeks. She never put on makeup, so she wasn't even sure she was placing it on properly, but she was trying. She stood in front of the full-length mirror behind her bedroom door and turned side to side. It had been at least a year since she'd been on a real date, but she was a bundle of emotions ranging from excitement to nerves as she thought of the conversation with Elaine just this morning. The simple light blue dress she'd chosen swung back and forth as she turned her hips. She layered it with a black and white collared shirt underneath for warmth and whimsy, finished with a pair of sleek black boots, polka dot belt, and small button earrings. She was proud of it. The entire outfit was very Amelia, and not at all like she was trying to be something she wasn't. The doorbell rang, snapping her out of her thoughts that had taken hold once again. She ran to the door, her riding boots a welcome choice when she thought of all the slush and ice that waited out in the driveway, eager for her clumsy feet to slip. Not today, she thought. She swung the door wide and Eli stood before her, bundled up against the cold. "Amelia, hi, wow, you look amazing," he smiled. "I'm sorry to come up to the door, but I didn't want you to think I'd forgotten you. When you didn't come out, I assumed you couldn't see the car or something." She glanced at the wall. That stupid clock. She didn't even realize he was supposed to be here by now. They'd agreed he'd be here at 7, yet the clock read 6:45. She checked her phone, 7:20. She looked up embarrassed. "I'm so sorry. That clock is just the worst, no matter how many times I said it." She silently thanked her nerves for getting her ready as early as she did. "Don't worry about it." He genuinely looked like he meant it and shrugged. "No harm done. Let's head out now, though. I'm starving." Amelia grabbed her coat off the hook, keys off the counter, and gave Bennett a pat on the head before turning toward the door. As she passed the coffee table, she saw her lucky bookmark sitting there, unused since she'd finished Secret Sisters the night before. She grabbed it and tucked it into her dress pocket. Just another reason to love this dress. For a confidence boost, and headed out the door. The car ride to Antonio's was quiet. They each kept to the typical formalities, but it was to be expected when nervous. When the car pulled into Antonio's busy parking lot, Eli walked around the car and opened Amelia's door, something that had never been done for her before, and held her arm as they walked across the icy pavement. The restaurant was warm and charming, right down to the checkered tablecloths and tea light and greenery centerpieces. The place was busy, but it was a Friday, and Antonio's was one of the few nice places in town. Plus, with the hum of hushed voices, Amelia felt like they had almost had their own bit of privacy. Eli shrugged out of his coat, revealing a black sweater paired well with his dark jeans. He turned back to face the table, caught her eye, and smiled. "So this is the place everyone goes, huh? No Olive Garden in town?" He smirked at his own joke, but immediately her guard went up. It was the same tone he'd used those few days ago at the restaurant when he gave his ridiculous order. "Yes, it is. We quite like it." She served it right back. She loved Clarksbridge, and she wasn't going to compromise her love of it for anyone, especially some city boy she just met. She opened her menu forcefully and stared down at the page, despite already knowing exactly what she was planning to order. His fingertips appeared over the top of the menu and gently pulled it down from her face. He looked at her apologetically, his eyebrows knit together. "I'm sorry. Sarcasm is really big in Boston and Baltimore and every city I've been to, honestly. If you don't have some sort of attitude, you kind of lose people's attention." She stared at him, waiting to see if he was going to continue or if that was it. "I don't mean anything by it, and I don't mean to offend you. It's a habit. I'll try to manage it better." He looked into her eyes and realized she was waiting for one more thing. "And I'm sorry for my annoying sandwich order the other day. I'd had a bad morning and I took it out on you." He half smiled and stared back at her. "Prove it," she said, crossing her arms. "Order tonight off the menu. No hard time for the waitstaff." He held up his hands in defeat. "Absolutely. Done." Despite a waiter who was clearly new, Eli kept his half of the deal. Through burned breadsticks, the wrong refill on his drink, and a dessert they definitely didn't order, he smiled through it all and was a perfect customer. Although Amelia took on the annoying role and politely asked for some new breadsticks for the table. At some point during dinner, the nerves they had both been feeling melted away and revealed two people who had a lot in common. They talked through their childhoods, first books, favorite books, had a lively yet volume-controlled debate regarding The Great Gatsby and the symbolism of the green light, and definitely enjoyed the dessert they did not order while talking about some of their favorite bookstores they had ever visited. When the evening was over and they climbed back into Eli's car, Amelia felt full. Not just of breadsticks and cheesecake, but emotionally. She had a great time, and she wasn't just making herself believe that. She really, truly did. All too quickly, they were back outside her ranch, porch light beckoning her to come inside where it was warm and familiar. Yet she had to admit, this unfamiliar territory had been unexpected, but a welcome change of pace. Eli stepped out of the car and once more opened the door for her as she stepped out into the crackling layer of ice on the pavement. "You really don't have to do that, you know," she said as she gripped the door for balance. "I can open my own door. I'm a fairly modern woman." He smiled at her as he offered his elbow once again as she let go of the cold metal. "My dad always did it for my mom. No matter how old they get, even when I go home, he opens the door for her every time. Though he's a bit slower now and it takes him a minute to get around the car, he does it." They carefully stepped from the driveway onto the sidewalk. "Once when I was 10 or so, I asked him why. She said thank you every time, but why do it? They've been married for years and years. She expected it from him. What was the point?" Amelia gripped his arm as she took the final step up to her front stoop, slick with ice. "What did he say?" She looked down at him, only one step below her, but feeling like he was so much closer than that. "If you care about someone, you do things for them. Little things. Even if it's not a special thing, even if there's no reason to, you do it so they know you care. Every day, it's my way of telling her, you're important to me." Amelia was suddenly very aware of how close their faces were, the fog of their breath intertwining in the air and the limited space between them. Channeling that bravery she'd had the day before, she leaned forward suddenly, too suddenly. Despite the flat boots she'd worn for this very reason, her feet slipped from the shift and weight, and she was suddenly falling. And yet, she didn't. She opened her eyes, and Eli's face was even closer than it had been before as he caught her on her way down, arms wrapped firmly around her back. Their eyes formed a line, and her voice caught in her throat, preventing her from saying anything. Amelia, I care about you. You're important to me. And right then and there, in the faint glow of the holiday lights from her front window, she knew that this story was only just beginning. Okay, now on to the gift for day 9, which is this little envelope gift. Oh, it's her lucky bookmark. They all read Happily Ever After, and it's got like a little pink tassel. Very cute. And it's nice, thick wooden bookmark. On to day 10. Amelia didn't sleep much last night. After Eli ensured she was safely inside, he departed with her watching gleefully from the front window, peering through the slats in the blinds as he backed out of the driveway and drove off into the darkness. Her joy rubbed off on Bennett, who stayed up with her, purring cheerfully on the couch cushion beside her as she wrapped herself in one of her favorite blankets and played Christmas movies on Netflix back to back. She never considered herself a big TV person, but she could not focus on a book tonight no matter how hard she tried. So she allowed herself to be taken away into the TV land of what-ifs and maybes. After a fitful few hours of sleep on the couch, she woke up to Bennett crawling over her, impatient for his breakfast. The clock read 6:30, so she assumed it was right around 7. The sun was just starting to peek through the curtains. She stood up and stretched and switched the TV over to the news for some background noise, trying to keep herself distracted. One thing Amelia had realized last night is that she wasn't sure she could manage this added detail to life. A life with a relationship, that is. She was in school full-time for half the year, and she worked full-time. She had a house and bills and wanted a career, the same career she'd wanted since she was little, and she had dreams for herself that she was not going to let anyone prevent her from achieving. Not her parents, and not some fairy tale she hadn't planned on. Amelia was one thing after all, tenacious. She prided herself on it, and she wouldn't let anything get in the way of her dreams. Compromising them was not an option. As she stood at the counter, a cup of coffee clutched in hand, the weather reporter came on and announced today would be a warm one. It was already well above freezing. With the amount of adrenaline coursing through her, fresh air would be just what she needed. Throwing on a pair of leggings, sneakers, a flannel sweatshirt, and ear warmers, she put her ear pods in and charged out the door onto her no longer icy but very wet walkway as the snow began to melt. Running through the neighborhood was brisk and refreshing. She didn't plan on going far, but just getting out of her stuffy house was invigorating. Having the opportunity to not think and just focus on her breathing was exactly what she needed. She turned right at the end of her street and decided to just run the block, taking 2 more rights before arriving back outside her house. Winded and flushed, and her nose a bit numb, she felt absolutely incredible. Despite some of the other neighbors being out, she took this time for herself, giving them a small wave before continuing on, enjoying the fact that nature didn't have expectations for how much of her life she should have figured out. Walking up the driveway and unlocking the front door, she beelined for the kitchen and filled her pink water bottle with cool water before drinking half of it in a few gulps. While she loved the feeling of having a clear head, she absolutely did not exercise enough to just head out without being properly hydrated. Carrying the water bottle into the living room and feeding Big Ben, she sat on the couch and relaxed, sinking into the plush cushions, not a thought related to her future in her head. She was so incredibly relaxed, in fact, that when she opened her eyes a few minutes later, her invalid wall clock read 1:40, meaning it was after 2, and she was, once again, late for work. Now on to the day 10 gift. And this is a super cute glass water bottle with this silicone grip over it. And the top is like wooden, and it has engraved in it Once Upon a Book Club. And I love it. It's super cute. See if I can get it to focus. I don't know if y'all can tell, but I'm a fan of pink. Now on to day 11. Maria Elaine's was incredibly busy, as it was most Saturdays, and because of Amelia's impromptu nap earlier, she was there for all of it, right up until the last customer left for the evening and the door was locked. She didn't even have time to answer Maria's abundance of questions about her date the night before, though truthfully, she didn't really want to. While the night before was fun and wonderful and unexpected, she was still worried about how juggling this new aspect of life would affect her future plans. Not only with school, but her career. That came first. After the cafe was swept, the doors of the fireplace were closed and locked, and the lights were turned off, she walked exhaustedly back to her car, eager to go home and sit down. She'd forgotten that for how energetic she felt immediately after a run, it made her so tired. Arriving home, she walked up the front walkway, careful on the stoop not to slip, and opened the screen door to unlock the front door. Falling out of the gap between the two came a few boxes left carefully by her mail carrier, a fellow book lover who knew to place her packages somewhere they wouldn't get wet. Amelia grabbed the few goodies and proceeded inside, tossing them on the counter to be inspected after she was out of her work clothes. Plus, poor Bennett had missed lunch due to her late exit, so he took priority. Taking a long shower, Amelia felt herself almost immediately decompress under the hot water from the long day at work. By the time she was back in her fuzzy socks and cozy hoodie, she felt nearly as good as she had that morning. Walking back into the kitchen, she pulled a mug from the cabinet and made a decaf coffee to enjoy as she opened her mail. She adored getting packages and was one of those people that occasionally opened them while standing at her mailbox. She had an Instagram account where she liked to post reviews, and those few thousand followers she had there was enough to grab the attention of a few publishers who sent her books on occasion. Today was such a day. Peeling back the wrapping from the first package, a novel she'd never heard of stared up at her. A beautiful cover of pinks and greens. The words, "All is beauty now," stared up at her. She was immediately taken by the cover and looked forward to diving into it. Reading the inside cover, it seemed to be about a family who lost their daughter. The last sentence of the description grabbed Amelia's attention and made her heart thump. On the brink of a new life, if only they can make peace with the past. Amelia must have read that 4 times before carrying the book over to the couch and curling up with it. She was big on letting books do the talking. She liked to think that when she received a book at random or spontaneously chose a book off her shelf, it wasn't really a chance encounter. The books she chose or received were always trying to teach her something, and this one was no different. Pulling a blanket into her lap, Amelia began reading about a Brazilian family as tragedy struck and their lives changed forever. She wasn't sure how long she was going to stay awake, yet she plowed through, drawn in by the vivid description and characters, eager to find out what their choices were. But internally she could only think of how she, a girl from Clarksbridge, New Hampshire, hadn't been looking for love, might have had her entire life changed just 24 hours ago. And was she going to run away from it, or see where this twist could take her? So I'm guessing this is the book in day 11. And it's called All is Beauty Now by Sarah Faber. This is a really pretty cover. And this is set in Brazil, 1962, which it just kind of told us about the book, so I'm not going to go into that. Let's move on to day 12, the last day. Amelia woke up with a start. She couldn't quite remember her dream, but she did remember that it had something to do with a hallway and there being too many doors, and she couldn't choose, and she was just stuck running down the never-ending corridor. All she knew was that she did not want to run again for a long time. She sat up and rubbed her eyes, Bennett jumping off the end of the couch onto the floor to rub her hand as it hung off the edge of the cushion. He stepped over the copy of All is Beauty Now that lay upside down on the floor. While she wasn't sure if she had put it like that or if it had fallen, she remembered loving it up until she fell asleep. Picking it up and turning it over, she glanced at the page number 160. She cringed as she put the book back upside down on the table. Her lucky bookmark was still in the pocket of her dress from Friday night, so that would have to do for now. Standing and stretching, she immediately needed coffee. Walking back into the living room, steaming mug in hand, she picked the book back up and skimmed page 160, trying to see if anything seemed at all familiar, or if it had fallen onto an unfamiliar page. While the page didn't seem familiar, the first paragraph at the top made her freeze regardless. She didn't need to read the whole book for her to know that this book was talking to her. Hope. The only thing crueler being hopelessness. Her heart skipped a beat. It was something she hadn't admitted to herself that she even had yet, but she had it. Hope. She truly wanted to hope that she and Eli might have a chance, that she could still pursue a career and school and see where they might go. It wasn't that she didn't want it, but she was scared of taking on so much and failing at it all. Truthfully, this was something she felt she should talk to Eli about directly. She ought to be upfront with him and just tell him these fears and see where he was with everything. He might not even be on the same page as she was. She stood and started to walk toward her room to grab her phone when she saw the second package that had fallen out of her front door the night before, staring at her on the kitchen counter. She hadn't noticed last night, but the package was beautiful. A printed array of multicolored ornaments with greenery woven among them. She picked up the package and inspected it closer. Strangely, there was no stamp, or postal marking of any kind, as though it was hand-delivered. The only indication was a small gift tag on the top left of the box that read, "To Amelia, from Table 4. She smiled immediately and turned the box over. She opened it carefully to reveal a gorgeously designed clock, a green background sprinkled with snow. The words, "Just one more chapter," spread across the entire clock face. While he couldn't know this for sure, those words were pretty much her mantra in life, as she essentially said them to herself every night before bed. There was even a drawing of a girl reading in the lower corner, and when she squinted at what she was reading, no way. Once Upon a Book Club was scrawled across the book cover, meaning this was made after he saw her necklace. He remembered what was on her necklace. Her shock morphed into absolute joy as she carried the clock into her bedroom and grabbed her phone as she originally had planned only a few minutes before. When she picked it up, she had a text waiting from Eli. "Thought it would help, since you're notoriously tardy." She had 1,000 questions pertaining to how and where and what, but she settled with, "Thank you, I absolutely love it." No sooner had the message been delivered did a response come through. "Maria Elaine's, 1 p.m. Don't be late." She glanced at the new clock already ticking away and smiled even wider. She would absolutely not be late. Not for school, not for work, not for any potential dates they might have. Amelia walked back into the living room, removed the old clock from its hook, and hung the new one proudly. She took a step back, such a simple gesture, and yet she immediately felt like he understood her. While she still wanted to talk to him about her fears, she was suddenly a lot less hopeless and a lot more hopeful. While there was still a lot to figure out, she was sure that her life would be full of these tough decisions, but she was excited for wherever this decision took her, as she turned to get herself ready for a chapter she hoped would never end. The end. Happiest of holidays from the Once Upon a Book Club team. And now we open our last gift, which has the decorative ornaments all over it, and it says, "To Amelia from Table 4 right here. Love this. Love it so much. It's the clock. Yay. I'm definitely going to be using this baby in here. I love it so much. Awesome. Gosh, I don't know what my favorite gift is out of all of these things. I love a lot of them. What was your favorite gift? Comment down below and let me know. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a big thumbs up. If you'd like to see more videos like this, click that subscribe button down below. And until next time, remember to always be completely you. Bye!